for thing generated. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just it doesn't really compare to human music. So
Yeah.
at least at this moment in time.
But why did you like initially think it's better?
I think it was just because I've been
Use?
hearing so many things about like the AI like image generation and stuff is getting really good. And I think I just came into the class with the notion that it felt like maybe all frontiers of AI were maybe
Yeah,
this
yeah,
way,
yeah.
but this is still pretty new, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, there could be two reasons. One is like music is fundamentally harder, which may not be true if you as a visual artist. But the other thing is about, if you're in the field, you're easier to tell what are the nuances that's just not doing right. I mean, if you ask a visual artist about, whether these Gen AI image stuff are good, but they will easily tell that there are some details that just doesn't make sense.
Right.
But for us, I mean, whenever I'm doing like a image gen, I was like, oh, it's good enough. But if it's music, I'm very picky. Yeah. So that could be the reason. Cool.
I say I am a visual artist as well. And the music versus the art, like I do think the visual art generation is better than music.
Yeah, I do agree. And I think that's part of the reason about, I think music is just, I said one thing about music is copyright issues. So people won't just do it. And for visual arts, sometimes it's sad that people just do it, and because there's no legal implications, at least at the beginning. But now, we've seen more and more protection and legal concerns of it. But initially, people are like, "Well, we just do it," and there's no legal implication of that. But music is not. I mean, since day one, we have all the copyright protection for music, especially. So what do you think? Like, is current AI more capable than you thought? Like before the class, I mean. Same.
I don't think I have very high expectations of it.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
And I don't think that has changed a whole lot. Like there's definitely some things that like the music FX stuff is interesting to work with. But like I'm playing around with it, I feel like there's a lot of things that it can really get well, and I think the music does not sound like something that I would necessarily dance to or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for me it's the same. It's like I think it's for some part is like more capable than I thought. But for some part, that's like fundamental, just keeping on the beat, and it just never do it. It's just like it just always like missing a beat, or just randomly, be off tune in some sense. So sometimes it's just like just making very basic errors. Cool. Any other thoughts?
I think I'm like, I would knew all these tools and stuff before, so it's like exactly what I expected, but I feel like I lean where towards Christian. Or, I feel like there's still a long ways to go. There's still so many artifacts, a lot of things. It's like even Suno's like pretty good, but like outside of Suno, I feel like it's completely overshadowed by Suno. I think that's my personal usage of the tools.
Cool. Yeah. So I don't know what I'm expecting actually. Yeah, but I guess it should be both. For some it's just like it's making obvious mistake, but for some it's just like, well, it's doing something interesting. I guess another thing I would be interested in knowing is that what do you think about what kind of AI music tools would you like to see in the next 5 years? That's things we can think about. And what do you consider the next AI milestones for music? And what is the next grand challenge of AI music? And I guess one thing I want to emphasize a little bit here is that, AI music versus music AI starting to be two things. Now people are thinking about it differently. So in the past, we have like music information retrieval and like computer music. These are like two different fields. So if you think about music technology, it's about technology. It's like music's how technology can be used to facilitate, music production. But on the other hand, computer music is a field where people are, using computers or technology to to do music, to create music, to perform music. So, from day one, those should be two different fields. And, initially all these AI things mostly started from the tech part. But, part of it is also, having, an extension of computer music, computer music sort of like since day one is about, algorithmic composition, but now we have AI and it becomes another sort of like milestone or another paradigm of computer music. But, AI music is different from music AI, as you may say, but more like, music technology. So music AI is about, some AI algorithm that potentially could be helpful in music, but it also extends to, things we talk about like recommendation system and things, beyond just, creating the music. But AI music will be sort of like the analogy of like computer music about how you can use AI to generate music. And at some point, I feel that, same as computer music and electronic music, it will become, just music. It's just like we listen to music not because it's AI, not because it's computer generated, not because it's electronic music, but because it sounds good. So that's sort of the thing about, AI music versus music AI. I don't know, what's your thoughts on like the big challenge of AI music?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest, well, the biggest challenge I think would be to mix the amount of AI and human intervention enough to where you could look at something that was made maybe heavily using AI, but the human element is still there, and making sure that that's kind of pushed to the forefront rather than because if the AI music itself becomes so let's say good, or replicates what humans do enough, it would just functionally put all the artists out of work.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what really anybody wants. So it would be ideal. I mean, ideally, like the AI would just be going towards making DAWs even more robust than they already are. Because I mean, DAWs already have a billion features that are with the AI.
Yeah.
Functionally. So it would just be, making those even more powerful and giving more facility to the person using the DAW itself. I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're far from that. Yeah, so it's interesting to see, some of the AI development is sort of like counterintuitive that, you first build something and then, put the human back. It's just weird in that sense, but that's what we've seen so far. And, I think I was watching the TED talk by Sam Altman yesterday, which is pretty cool to look into what he thinks about, OpenAI's future. He talked about, agentic AI. So, AI agent that could starting to do stuff on web or, do stuff in real life. So, you'll have a higher stack on that if you allow them to do something. So that's sort of the idea of, these AI thing is that, you started from, very constrained, like experimental playground. But now you want to add human back, and that become the biggest challenge. You have safety concern, you have all the risks. But at some point, people wanted more, to actually be in sort of like a partnership with AI rather than, this is just, a passive tools that you can get stuff. Maybe there's a new paradigm that you can potentially be, more collaborative or more back and forth, between human and AI. And we don't know yet where we are heading to. I think like OpenAI is releasing a feature that it can look into all your past history. But think about it, we sort of like familiar with it. It's like, the Facebook algorithm and the recommenders, like streaming system, but also, just Google search. It's sort of like adapt to you. Even you can opt out, but still it's sort of like adapt to you. And, but if it's an AI, it could sort of like talk to you, and it becomes knowing more and more about you. It could become a new interesting venue of, how, human computer relationship could go. Other thoughts? And I definitely agree that though, is where, AI still not doing a lot of stuff inside though. It's, mostly Python script, which is very, very tricky to use in real life. But we'll see more. And, some of the, I think recently, Apple, like AI mastering, they do it, right? Yeah. So slowly people are doing stuff, and sometimes called AI, sometimes called intelligence, sometimes called smart. But some of the those companies, they are trying to do stuff into their existing systems.
I agree with like tooling and DAWs. I'm not a big fan of AI music, but I like AI tooling. And I see a lot of like work coming up on like melody generators. People got like the Claude MCP hooked up to they're able to talk to Claude to add clips and generate maybe directly to Ableton. I'm really excited for that, like AI synth presets. I want to talk. That's something specific I'm like really looking forward to. AI mixing, like you're doing like the really technical stuff that people usually do by hand, masking, fixing frequency masking, fixing phase cancellation issues. Those kind of like really small technical things. I feel like that's very easily doable. It's such a small like problem space. That it's doable.
So
The AI mixing master engineer is built in. You can see all the signals and automatically apply EQ compression.
And I think that's the same for Gen AI. It's like, Gen AI still mostly are not listening to inputs. It's just, generating stuff. And those are text condition. And, if you think about like improvisation or, humans, we listen to some inputs, or, listen to those tracks, and then you compose on top of it, rather than, you just given a text. We don't communicate with text. But that's sort of the current limitation of these AI models. So in one sense, all these audio engineering, potentially, AI could offer a very good starting point, but also, these Gen AI tools, they should also listen to the sounds that it generates. Cool. Thoughts?
I think that I agree with what Christian was saying. Like, I think that it needs to be about like DAWs and stuff, and I don't think it's gonna take a lot for like actual just like AI generated music to like take over, because like the way that we use AI for anything is to make jobs easier that we don't want to do. But I don't think that making music is a job that anyone doesn't want to do or wants to be like replaced or wants to be streamlined. And the way that people value music is because of the human to human connection that it facilitates. Even electronic music, like any genre of music, like people appreciate the composition piece of it. So I can imagine like for like really like cookie stuff, like I can imagine AI being trained on like just Max Martin and then like an AI being trained to like pop out Max Martin ideas, but I never think that it's really gonna overtake all artists. I think that there are just gonna be like roadblocks, maybe like that. Where I think that legal challenges will probably take over. And I like listen to a lot of like podcasts and shit who like say that like music could be like where like in the courts AI like finally reaches like that's where the precedent gets set because people are so passionate about the like the creative content and the ownership over that. So I don't know, I think that it will continue to become more of a tool, but I never think that it will be able to replace except for giving ideas, but I still think that people won't value that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's whenever people think about, emotion depth of a music. And, I think that's we would talk about it later. Is the what's that? Like what's his name? Forgot his name. We talk about it in our first class. Where is that? Let me find it in. Oh yeah, Davy Cole. People tell me that they don't hear Saul in the music. And at the end, the feelings that we get from listening to music are something we produce. It's not there in the notes. It comes from the emotion insights in each of us. The music is just the trigger. So I guess that's a sort of the reason why human is so important in this in creativity is that we will also talk about it like can AI generate art? AI could be sort of like creative in some definition, but does it actually generate art? And if there's no human intention, can it be called art? And why should we look into this art? But some of the reason AI sort of like art practice, some of the cool AI art idea is sort of sometimes like challenge the difference between real and fake, but there's that human intention that makes it interesting. And this is why the project is interesting, to see whether human sort of like the bias, the bias of knowing that this is AI or not, will it sort of like impact humans, receptions of the same content differently. So that's definitely interesting dimension of AI music. Cool. Anyway, I guess for the next few slides, I would just talk about a little bit more about some of the challenges of AI music in my view. So I will identify some of the biggest challenges, I think, and you may agree or disagree. But these are some of the front line of AI music, and more technical, but sometimes more I don't know, philosophical or more defining what we mean by AI music. So starting from very basic idea about representation, multimodality, to more high level usability and personalization, and at the end challenge what creativity is. So we will go through it. So that should be the main part of today's class. So I guess the first challenge is very, very fundamental. It's about representation. So this is things that we talk a lot about in class. Because deep learning is If you look at the biggest conference in deep learning, not the biggest, one of the biggest. So one is like NeurIPS, it's like neural information processing, and the other is like international conference on machine learning. And the third one is International Conference on Learning Representations. So deep learning is itself learning representations. So by representation, what we mean is that how can we best represent music for machine learning, or digitize it so that we can learn something from it. So that's the biggest challenge. Sort of like if we want to leverage the power of data science or machine learning, deep learning technology, we have to sort of like port music or pour whatever data that we're interested in into the digital format that we can process. So this doesn't say that claim that this is like a perfect reconstruction of the original music. So we will also talk about it that music has a lot to do with the societal connection, and there are like cultural context and nuance about why this music was born and how people actually get that idea from. But from the technical side, representation is all we have to start with in these deep learning models. So we talk about this again and again in that the full paradigm thing. We have text-based MIDI and image-based piano roll, time series waveform, image-based spectrogram. And at least for me, I don't know, I feel like they are all equally important of music. It's that music is just everything. It's not like music is a time art, so we just listen to it sequentially. There are structural, there are repetition, there are multiple notes happening at the same time. And waveform versus spectrogram, I don't even know which one is more natural. It's like waveform is how we listen to it, but inside our ear, we are actually doing Fourier transform to some extent. So these four paradigms, still people are debating which one is the correct one. And looking at these music of self-attention, this is one thing to look at it. It just attend to different part of the music in a sequential way. So everything is sequentialized, but other transformer will look into different part of the music based on that self-attention thing. So we talk about the self-attention actually could learn something about music. Did I talk about it? Maybe, but anyway, this is one thing that we show that some of the models can actually attend to notes that are 4m beats away in the past that has a pitch in an octave above, which forms a consonant interval. So these are two things that just show that these models just sort of know something about music that 4m beats away sort of like correspond to 4/4 time, because the data set is mostly dominantly 4/4. But also it has some idea of scale. If you look at this, the first degree just is not presented mostly, and it knows that fourths and fifths are closer to the pitch. So which is interesting to see that model does pick up some of the very fundamental music theories. But at the same time, we have that piano roll that's just like repeating itself, and piano player piano, and it always have that sense of visual component of music. It's parallel and repetitive patterns. And that's translational invariant. That's why we are using convolutional neural network for this. And you can generate stuff, and it works to some extent because there are structures inside it rather than those are sequential things. There are parallel things happening at the same time. And you see that diffusion models can also do stuff like in piano roll rather than linear sequentialized transformer way. So I think the field is still debating which one is better. But for me, I feel like the future is both, and we should figure out a way to do it combined. So it's sort of like, I don't know, it's sort of like, getting the best from both worlds. And we don't know yet what that will be. But that's some of the most front end research people are debating. Cool, that's very technical. But the second challenge should be more obvious, is that multimodality. Can AI learn to create music by listening to music rather than reading music? So it's sort of like ironic that most of the music generation system, if you think about symbolic music generation, like MIDI generation, it's just learning from reading. It just doesn't make much sense as a human. Is that, give you a bunch of like musical scores or sheet music, and you just read it again and again and again and again without playing it any single time. But somehow you expect the model to learn something about it without actually playing it. And on the other hand, we have like linear learning from listening, just some of these Suno music gen model, it just listen to a bunch of music or audio, and somehow you expect it to just generate something from scratch. So that also doesn't make much sense. We don't know yet whether these models are actually learning about music, or you're just learning about all the just waveforms and Fourier transform and copy pasting stuff, or is it actually learning something about music? But also it extends a little bit beyond reading and listen. Is that we also learn from watching. You go to concert, you attend class, and you attend like master class to see how people actually play music and how ensemble works. So there's multimodality in this learning process of music. But also these Gen AI currently is mostly text. Now we see some image, we see some video, and the brand to music, we see a little bit about what a brand interface could be like. It could be kind of chaotic, but it could also be fun. If you can imagine, I was watching the YouTube video about a gaming conference happening earlier this week at San Francisco, and they're seeing that some of the company are actually having like a real band on your width to sort of like detect your heart rate, so that it can sort of like when you're playing horror games, it knows your emotional state. But generative music AI could also be like that. Emotion could be an input to the generative music model. But also think about improvisational case that these emotion, these visual cues, and a lot of things happen without text. So here's like one example about AI creative agents. I how do I should click it here. Okay. So this is like from EarCam. So it's a little bit like 10 years ago. But still AI, but not the like deep learning AI that we are looking at today. But this is like some of the creative agent or improvisational agent that can actually listen to what you are playing. And now I believe your cam is also doing very hard on making it more AI, more deep learning ish AI. And the sound doesn't work. trying to pause. So what you see is that, the opera is being sliced into many chunks, and it will just jump between different chunks of that. That's the algorithm is about. So, it will listen to the pianist's sound, actual sound, and process it to sort of like detect what the chords are, what are the underlying, development of musical idea is, and then try to match that by jumping through different slices of the opera scene.
From which I've never known you, and so I'm dreaming of the man I love.
You can see that it's like jumping between different sort of like time points in that video. So this is another example. They have like two sort of like systems. So this system is, rather than slicing the audio, it's using another algorithm that actually generated the note. But you will see that the system will respond. So this is like a pre deep learning era, but I think they are sort of like, it's called Somax. So you can Google and you will see a lot of like interesting examples how people are interacting with these systems. But they are also now seeing whether current deep learning can help in making these systems even more interesting. But these are some of the examples where improvisational AI, then you definitely need that multimodality inputs rather than just just reading the scores. And also visual cues is also important. So Shimon is like, I show it early, I think in first class, but Shimon is like an improvising robotic marimba player. What's interesting about it is that is mostly doing, it's like it's like 2021, but I think the concert is even before that. It's like more than 10 years ago. But anyway, one thing it does is interesting is that it will actually it's actually running beat estimation under the hood. So it listens to the ensemble, it will run like downbeat extraction or beat estimation to see where are the beats, and Shimon will wave its head according to the beats, so that it provide that sort of like, I don't know, some connection with the position. Sorry about it. But anyway, you also see that creepy webcam staring at you. I think it does capture some images. But anyway, that's the idea, be or not, it's trying to make connection with you, even though sometimes a little bit creepy. Cool. So again, 10 years ago, we will see sort of like deep learning version of it, hopefully soon. But now we have like better computer vision algorithm, but we also have better, MIR algorithm. We have a better way to embed a robot or an AI system into the real world and actually get those sensory inputs and parse them into useful signals. But how do we leverage that to actually create a more enjoyable, interactable interface? That's still unknown. But now we have more technology. Multimodality is one thing that current AI, music AI, is not doing well on. So that's bring us to this third challenge, sort of like similar to, just following up is, usability. How can AI music tools be integrated into an artist's creative workflow? So we talk a little bit about, improvisational framework. Is that, it's a lot more. You need to understand, how human play music, but also, not just listening. There could be visual cues and, think about like a string quartets, how musicians, communicate on stage. Can AI do that? To do that, what do we need for these AI to be doing? So those are, uncertainty, and, whether it can be doable is still unknown. But on the other hand, here I want to talk a little bit about, we talk about, those and, other, non-live performance scenario. So this is one thing that I want to show, and I hope something similar will happen to DAW soon. So this is like Wave Journey, is like compositional audio creation. So what it did is that, given some instructions, say they are actually doing like news generation. So what I want to do is, so, given some instruction, they will use GPT-4 to generate some audio script, which look like this. Say music started at, the beginning and, has a volume that's, lower as the background pad on the line. And then someone will start speaking, there's a speech, foreground, host. And then we have another music, we have some sound effects, and then, it will have reporter, director, reporter. So there will be, different people talking to one another. So this is sort of like a storyboard of what you want to generate. Actually, we can look at the example. Somehow I didn't include it in my slides. Let's find the example. Yeah, this one. So the instruction is like generate an audio in sci-fi theme. Mars News reporting that humans send light speed probe to Alpha Centauri. This is what the model can generate.
Welcome to Mars News, your source for interstellar news and updates. We have a significant development to report today. Humans have sent a light-speed probe to Alpha Centauri. Now, let's connect with our on-site reporter to give us a brief overview.
We're here at the headquarters of the United Earth and Mars Government Space Exploration Division, where the probe was developed. And we're speaking with the chief engineer responsible for this groundbreaking project.
Thank you. So it's a fantastic achievement for...
Yeah, so you get a sense there, everything is generated here, and it's based on this like script. So, you started with some music, you have, the host speaking, and then you have some sound effects that, switch to that scene. And then, reporter, we are here at the headquarters, blah, blah, blah. And then the director respond, thank you, blah, blah, blah. And then the repeater keep asking questions. So, everything here is, not being trained in some sense. You are just using GPT-4. You ask ChatGPT about, generate this JSON format, or, generate something in this format that turn it into text. And then you just use pre-trained generated audio models. You have MusicGen, you grab these content description and send to MusicGen, send to Audio LDM to get the sound effects. Bark is the model for TTS, so you can also use TTS to synthesize those things. So, you know, pretty much you can just leverage all the pre-trained models to do something cool. But, you know, what's interesting to me is that, you know, this is like interactable intermediate outputs. And this is essentially what you can do in Premiere Pro. That, you know, this is essentially the storyboard that, you know, this could be equivalent. So it has sort of like unlocked the ability to being integrated into professional creative workflow. But this is, you know, for Premiere Pro. But, you know, you can think about if these are those about, you know, I want a pad, and then I want a loop here that, you know, repeat for the verse, and then into chorus, I want something else. But that sort of like high level planning, the plan could be something, you know, generated by, you know, we could define it as a human input, but, you know, maybe the model could just generate something and then show you that, well, this is the blueprint, this is the layout. Do you like it? If you don't, you can move stuff around and then change it. So that's sort of the thing that I'm trying to say here is, you know, integration into professional creative workflow, and then human can step in and then, you know, move stuff around and then sort of like control what the layout is. So, you know, you can imagine, I don't know, in the future, hopefully soon, you know, for, you know, Pro Tools or, you know, Logic Pro, whatever those, there could be a way that, you know, can these, you know, music gen AI model generate a session file, rather than just a mixer waveform in the end. Or it doesn't has to be, you know, just generate the session file. It's just boring, but, you know, can we sort of like starting from the existing session file, and then if we want to do something on top of it, how these AI can help. And more broadly, you know, this is what, you know, maybe too high end, but, you know, this is what the whole framework is not just in the DAW, but also other, you know, workflow that you will use, all the, you know, mixing console, but also, you know, all the limiters, all the effects that you connect to, how AI could sort of like fit in within this framework. It's important for AI to be actually useful. Now I want to switch a little bit back to performative, you know, live performance scenario. So this is like rave. Did I talk about it? I guess so. A little bit. So, you know, rave is like real-time audio synthesis. So, you know, nothing fancy here. It's fancy. Later you will see the demo, but the model itself is nothing fancy. It's just that try our best to make this run as fast as possible into real time. So once you can have some machine learning model run real time, it actually unlocks some of the most interesting application, as we can see.
Therese been caught and walk the main move that author. And graduates will back to the club. Who appears to be stars in the heat. Looks like it left it and I didn't need this view from the bad.
So what's going on here is that, you know, you have this like JSON Nano, which is a GPU chip. You run the rave model on this, and then you use this controller to control all the latent space. So now you can explore the latency. Cool. So just making these model run real time, you can actually enable some of the most interesting application of all time for these AI model. So it's not too fancy. It's like a latent space, and your hand is in that latent space. But somehow, because we can sort of like do it lively, and you have to explore different space, here might be this like bass drum, but there you just find a snare drum that you like. So you can play with it and then, sort of like improvise on top of that, interface or the capacity that it gives you. And, this nano thing, we are getting more of it. So if you're interested in doing something on it, I am, let me know. We could do something fun. We are getting a bunch, I think 6 of these for the same class next semester. But if you want, we can also do it to do some fun project. But anyway, this is, now sort of like the new frontier of GPU computing is that, Raspberry Pi, tiny things, but also, Raspberry Pi. And this is sort of like just a nano. It's bigger than Raspberry Pi, but at least it's still smaller than your laptop. Then potentially you can mount it on some installation or mount it on your instrument that you are doing. Trying to do stuff. But anyway, this is sort of like the frontier of GPU programming that you can embed it, the system into more different form factors. Cool. And it actually runs much faster than the early version of GPUs. I think it runs sort of like 3070-ish speed, and it's just a Linux Python environment, which is very easy to develop. Cool. And I guess this brings us to sort of the ultimate way of what I think these AI tools will be most helpful is that this has to be misusable music tools. So this is quote from Nao Tokui. You can look at some of his work. Throughout history, music and technology have often intertwined, with new technologies being misused by artists, such as turntables. So turntables is one like interesting example where originally it's not for that purpose, but somehow people figured out that you can actually create some interesting creative or artistic intention by just scrapping it or doing different stuff on it. But AI for now is tricky to do it, is because it lacks a physical entity. It's not a hardware, it's more like a software and operate as a black box. But as we see in this rave case is that given that it's a black box, but if you make it somehow more hardware like, then people can play with it, people can sort of like misuse it, and it can sort of like create a new sort of like art form on top of it. And this is a quote that I really like. Without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. So that's sort of like resonates about the idea of why we need the kind of like usability that allows us to deviate from the norm and misuse these tools. So usability is important, but at the same time, with good usability, it also means that we are more easily to misuse these tools. So that's a sort of like an interesting double side things. And challenge 4, personalization. how can we make my personal AI music tools? I think this is one thing you likely care a lot. Is that, Suno, cool. You might hate it, you might like it, but it's not yours. It's like someone else, or stop music like. So what's the point? So this is one very interesting experiment that the Yak did with Google Magenta. So they make an album. You can actually this is one of the songs. The whole new album is powered by sort of like machine learning plus artists. So if you look at some of the goals they the band first took all 82 songs from their back catalog. So everything they've composed. So the whole band they composed the whole album, past albums together, and they put those loops into the machine learning model, put out new melodies based on the framework, and they did a similar process with AI using their old songs out of the material. So, all of these like one of the first try to do is that, can we sort of add ourselves into these models? But ease of personalization for artists, this is not easy. I mean, through fine-tuning our own models, through fine-tuning with live inputs, these could be different ways that this could be possible. Think about, if you're working on a DAW, then, I don't know, or you can have a standalone app that you open, and then you just drag a bunch of audio recording of your own, and then hope the model will just, fine tune it into a better shape that personalized to you. But, fine tuning with live inputs, can we sort of imagine a case that, you'll go on the stage on live, and then before the performance, you spend like 10 minutes or 30 minutes rehearsal playing with the system so that the system will somehow fine tune and personalize into your behavior. But also there is also, usability issue about, Python scripting versus friendly user interface. You never know how to do it. But can we do better? And also this is one thing that I've been thinking a lot recently is about overfitting. I think overfitting is itself very interesting, is that, overfitting could be a signature of these AI music. Think about distortion for guitar, for, electronic music, is that, distortion at first is like, what's the point? At first, electronic music, at least what we think about music synthesizer is to recreate perfectly the original acoustic, quality, acoustic signature of the instrument. But somehow people figured out, well, likely we won't succeed in near future, but then people starting to embrace that, artificial electronics sound qualities of it. And then people figured out different ways of doing it. And distortion sort of like become one of the iconic thing about, electronic music, because you can sort of like do it. But, overfitting, can it be a new music expression, sort of like the distortion of for the AI music? Maybe in the future, an AI music sort of like effects is that you can just tune it, and then some of those will be overfitting, maybe like temperature, like for sampling, or different parameters that's only makes sense for AI music, but doesn't make much sense for other things. And people are trying very hard to do personalized music generation, but little progress so far. So this is one of the things that's sort of like mentioned personalized in the title. Let's have a listen, and likely it's not something you're, imagine. So what this is doing is that this is grabbing something that we can do in sort of like image generation, is that, we can define a new concept say, you know, a specific instrument that the model never know, or, you know, maybe it knows, it just doesn't know what that translate into text. So you can sort of like define it as a special word, you know, a new word that's, you know, S star. So think about this way. Cool. So say that's S star. So now we want to generate, you know, a disco song with S star. So that's what we have for now. You know, and this is another example. So again, S star. And then you can generate like a recording of a S star song with a hip hop drum beat accompaniment. So you can imagine what we can do. Sort of like this is like the very minimum standard of personalization. Somehow you can adapt these model to understand some of the concept that you invent. You know, in this case, it's not something you invent, but you can think about, you know, sometimes we communicate about, you know, these things and we just think about that thing, you know, give me this, you know, blah, blah, blah things. And that blah, blah, blah can sort of like be used in this case as a new sort of like word that personalized to yourself. So this is sort of, you know, just one simple example of, you know, what personalization is for now. But we definitely need more, you know, just fine tuning or these, you know, new concept of doing personalization or, you know, live improvisational way of doing improvisation. We don't know yet how we can do it. We're running out of time, but the last challenge is about creativity. Can AI ever be creative? How can AI augment human creativity? I think we can finish it next on Wednesday. But we can just have Debussy here. Works of art makes rules. Rules do not make works of art. And so I guess that's the point of, you know, current machine learning. Maybe it learns something about the rules, but it doesn't necessarily make works of art. Cool. We still have a bunch of stuff to discuss, but we can finish it on Wednesday.